Hey, everybody, what's happening? I see that I've got a few of you here with me today. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Tuesday, the 19th, the day before Inauguration Day. And in a lot of ways, for a lot of reasons, this is a watershed moment. I think, 4 years ago when Trump was, yeah, 4 years ago when Trump was being inaugurated, I think a lot of us maybe had this idea, this perception that things ain't really going to change that much. I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of this sort of idea that all politics is rigged and therefore everything was pretty much going to be the same. It was just another white man. And I think we've all since learned, I think it's safe to say that everybody uh, has since learned that there are degrees of shit. Like it might all be shit, but I think now we've learned that there are degrees of shit. And we have come out of a really, really just high degree of shit. And hopefully, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, this new administration will be a far less shitty administration, one that we can appreciate. This is just a little bit of first of all, hi everybody. Let's see who we got. Let's do a little bit of roll call. And listen, there I see right now I can see that there are 9 of you, and that's fine. I would love it if everybody dropped me a hello like Miss Ebony Martin did. Um, and let me know that you're here in the place. Let me know that you're around. Part of that is because it really kind of helps me keep track of who's here, who's participating, because I might want to call y'all out. I might want to shout y'all out. I might want to ask you a question. I might just want to know that. Sorry, I'm looking at the comments, and Angel Monique suggested. She says that, and the lip is clean. I'm assuming she's talking about the shave. You better look like somebody tonight. And I can only wonder, do I look like nobody any other time? Is that what it is? And some of y'all church kids know that I'm just a nobody. Trying to tell everybody. Y'all don't know nothing about that unless y'all them church kids. Hey, Kamisha Umstead, good to see you. Glad that you're here. I see Issa Marie here. Hey, now wait a minute. Let me pause for a minute because I saw earlier on Issa Marie's timeline that she needed a little bit of loving up on today. So everybody send some kind thoughts and some good words to Issa Marie. If you see her there in your stream, if you're on Facebook, just go ahead and give her a little shout out. She specifically asked also for memes and jokes. So go ahead and send some of those and we'll share them for Issa Marie. All right, yeah. Now, it has been a while since I've done, sort of a real pre-read, and that's what this is. We just wanted to start up a little bit earlier and give us some time to connect, to vibe, just kind of reset things. One of the pieces of business that I want to do tonight, in addition to this roll call, because I see Issa Marie is here, I see now one of my moderators said, "Hey, my sweet." And that wasn't me that typed that. So whoever that was that typed that, type as yourself when you're typing yourself stuff. Don't type as as the account. I see Terry Meredith sending a little bit of love, and I see one of the moderators sent some love as story time. Not to say, Issa Marie, that I don't think you're sweet. I think you're delightful. I just wouldn't type that in the main. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, but yeah, one of the pieces of business that I want to do tonight is shout out a few people. And I don't know that everybody that I want to shout out is here, but I know Terry Meredith is here. So hi, Terry Meredith. I also want to shout out Judy Lee. Hi, Judy Lee. Thank you so much. I want to shout out Kitty Foxy. I want to shout out Blue Rose. I want to shout out I had another name written down. Kitty Foxy, Blue Rose. Kelly, Kelly James. And the reason that I'm shouting y'all out, first of all, thank you all for having at some time or another supported Storytime with Julian with your Cash App donations. They are greatly appreciated. And I want to send you all a little token of my appreciation. So if you would, if I just said your name, please go to the Storytime with Julian page on Facebook and message me with your address. Low die to what just happened? I don't know what Lodi 2. I don't know what that is. Terry Meredith, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what that is. If anybody knows what she's talking about, she might be talking about this, lo siento, but that's Spanish for I'm sorry, but I don't know what Lodi 2 is. That sounds like a county in California to me. But anyway, please, going back to what my original point was, if I just said your name, please drop me a message in Storytime with Julian's inbox, or email me if you need to. You can just email storytimewithjulian@gmail.com. I just want to send you a little token of my appreciation, just some little lightweight small time storytime swag that I want to send your way as a thank you. Also, if I said your name, I want you to let me know an author or a specific short story that you would like to hear read on Storytime with Julian, because for your contribution, for your patronage, I want to give a little bit of something back, and I want to read you something specifically that you want to hear. So let me know what that is. So again, Kitty Foxy, um, Kelly James, Terry Meredith, Blue Rose. Now, I know I haven't seen a lot of these names around in a while, and it is what it is. But I would really like for you to, if you know those folk, if they in your friend list, and you know that they're not here today, let them know that I'm looking for them. Don't make it sound like I'm Debo. Okay, don't make it like a Mexican got on boots type situation. I'm not looking for them like in a bad way. I'm looking for them in a good way. I see Judy Lee is here. Judy Lee, I just said your name earlier. Um, Wanted to thank you specifically for your support and your help of Storytime with Julian. And I'm asking you to hit up our the Storytime with Julian message box and give me a mailing address. I want to send you just a little token, a little something, to let you know how much we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Paris Renee just told Kitty Foxy to bring her ass. Kitty, bring the rest of you, please. Also, not just your ass, but bring all of you, because all of you is welcome here. Um, I'm feeling pretty good, y'all. Today, I'm not gonna lie, today has not been the easiest day. There's been some stuff going on with my mom that was a bit of concern, and to be perfectly honest, before I started getting ready for the show, I wasn't really getting ready for the show. Like I wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel up to it. And every once in a while, just the right moment, the right chord is hit to remind you, like, hey, you do this thing for a reason, and people value it, and it's important. And I got a message in my personal inbox like, hey, are we still doing story time tonight? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Because there's some people who look for that. There's some people who are excited about that. So we are absolutely doing story time, and I'm going to keep on doing story time. Good mood, bad mood, whatever. I'm going to get in the right mood so that I can do what I need to do, because this is important to me. And it's good to know that it's important to you. Let's see. Um, Okay, now there's a shout out going out. Now, Jessica Maudlin Phelps and J.H. Phelps are folks, are actually two friends I actually know in real life. And yeah, tonight's author is a Haitian American. Matter of fact, I know for a fact that Jessica is a huge fan of Edwidge Danticat. So good looking out, Erica. And all of y'all, please follow Erica and Paris's example. Tag somebody right now and bring them on in this space. That's how Storytime grows. We appreciate all sorts of support. But if you can't drop something in the Cash App for story time, that's okay. Follow, like, subscribe, comment. Help me catch them views on YouTube. Play us in the background while you're doing the work so I can catch those views on YouTube. Make sure that you support and tell your friends about it. And if you love the show, if you really, really love a particular story, even let people know, hey, he just read this bomb story. It's really dope. And you should come back another time because he reads all kinds of stuff. But that kind of support is what helps Storytime grow. It's what helps us be able to do more in the way of just bringing new books, new authors, being able to reach out and support the authors that we bring to the show. Last week, for those of y'all who missed Thursday's show, we had a great, great show. Um, in light of the political unrest and what we keep seeing referred to on the news as the insurrection, we wanted to read a story from our good friend of the show, Rihanna Milcar Scott, from his first collection, which is called Insurrections, Reclaiming His Word. That's what he kept hashtagging. And he was like, reclaiming my word, reclaiming my word. So we read two stories out of Insurrections, one of which was called The Three Insurrections. Beautiful, beautiful story. The other story was called Juba. And then Rian surprised us. He popped in and he was willing to do a little bit of a Q&A. So we had a nice back and forth, a little good exchange with him. And that happens sometimes on the show. We are fortunate from time to time that some of the authors that we read pop in and spend some time with us. So if you missed Thursday's show, please make sure that you catch it before this Thursday, because the shows are only up here on Facebook for a week. Now, for those of you who are watching us live on YouTube or who are watching us on Twitch, it's up indefinitely. On YouTube, it stays up for a while as well. So we've just been building quite a significant archive, and I'm seeing some of y'all just really um, doing the most right now in the best of possible ways. I see Erica Yolita is calling out Daniel Price and Wesley Mark Morrow to join in. I appreciate that. I see she also shouted for Kia Middleton to come join us. I hope that Kia joins us. I hope Will joins in. I would love to see Will's face in the place. Louisa Garshell, I'm going to struggle with that last name, but I hope that that person comes, that Issa Marie invited. And I thank all of you all so much. And Joker said that I did not call her name. See, if I ain't call your name, why you doing? And also I said in the inbox for story time, and Joker knows what's up. She knows the deal. She's just being extra right now. But yes, the tempering of chocolate by Angel Monique is definitely one of the books that I would love to get back to. I would also not mind getting back to oh shoot, help me out. I'm cause see the name changed on me twice. I'm gonna come back to it. But for those of y'all who know Iowan Stone Tribal Flowers book, her series, Sigil, and I don't know if it's Sigil Magic or if it's Sigil Masters. And so I'm stuck, but I believe that the full book is Sigil Magic. And I would love to have the opportunity to read another excerpt from Sigil Magic. So I haven't seen Iowan on in a little bit. So I would love to see her. So if any of y'all know her or see her, go ahead and call her out and let her know that we looking for her. And that one you can make sound like Debo. You can make it sound like Mexican got on boots. Cause yeah, Mexicans do got on boots. If y'all don't know what that is, hilarious little jokey joke thing that I found on the interwebs a little while ago. Makes me laugh pretty much every time, mostly because the dude in the skit cannot pronounce Mexicans, and so he says Mexicans got on boots. Anyway, Judy Lee just cracked me up with this. Yes, more Angel Monique, words and cookies. Why does that sound like a competing show, like another like another story time type show? Words and cookies with Angel Monique, which I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. Just, don't do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's room for everybody. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So tonight, the plan is to read from Edwidge Danticat because it's her birthday. And we're really, really excited. I'm actually loving having the opportunity to read authors' works on their birthday. We've had that opportunity for the last 3 weeks. We missed an author on the 15th. It was Ernest J. Gaines' birthday, and we missed that one. That was on Monday. Is that right? No, I can day better than that. Whatever day the 15th was, that was Ernest J. Gaines' birthday. We missed that one, and we didn't get to put up a post. So I'm going to have to do a belated post in honor of, and maybe we'll find an opportunity to work a story in sometime soon. Um, but that's it. So again, if I mentioned your name, I got a little bit of storytime swag for you. I want to send it out. And I love that Kamisha Umstead just called out Joker because yes, indeed, we are waiting on more Strangler Fig. And Kamisha Umstead wrote a paragraph, is what the word on the street is. Word on the street is that Kamisha Umstead wrote a paragraph, and I personally would like to read that paragraph. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So yeah. Yeah. And Joker over here telling lies about people not waiting on Strangler Fig, but yeah, they are. Listen, we're going to go ahead and wrap the pre-read. I want all of y'all to stick around. Give me a few minutes to get freshened up. We're going to get ready for the main show. Thank you so very much. And we will see you on the flip side, on the flippity flop. Catch you on flippity flip. Hey, and we're back. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much for sticking around, or if you're just now coming back or just now coming to, thank you so much for that. This is Storytime with Julian, and I am your host and lead griot, Julian. And I'm so happy to have you with me tonight. Now, I'm looking at the screen and it looked like it was frozen for a minute, but I hope you can all hear me. And let's see. Let's see. We got some folks here. I see homie Lou is here. For some reason, she wants to be called Phoenix. Not sure what that is, but hey, homie Lou Phoenix. Um, we see that, let's see. I see that we've still got Angel Monique, Issa Marie, Joker. Kitty Foxy is finally able to join us. That's good. Great to see you, Kitty Foxy. I'm glad that you brought all of yourself, and not just the limited portions that Paris suggested. Okay, and Phoenix is homie's niece. All right. Well, Phoenix, how are you? Good to see you. I see. I thought we were using our superhero names. I'm Spider-Man, by the way. Um, we're using our made-up names. Anyways, tonight we are reading from an author that is familiar to longtime listeners of Storytime with Julian. This is one of the earliest authors. Once we started moving out of How Long Till Black Future Month, I think the first author that we read after that was J. California Cooper. I believe the next author that we read after that was Edwidge Danticat, and we read from this book here, Krak. And tonight is Edwidge Danticat's birthday. She is, I believe, 53, if I'm not mistaken. If you look on the Storytime with Julian page on Facebook, you will actually see our birthday post for her celebrating her birthday. And it's got a brief bio so that you can learn a little bit more about Ms. Danticat, whose work really it expands a lot of different genres and a lot of different formats. So really, I'm really excited about that. There is a question from Jordis Denia from Jordis. Is this story age appropriate for a 10-year-old? That's a good question. I don't know is the actual truthful answer, but give me a minute. Give me just a second. If you'll be patient with me, we'll go ahead and we'll figure out a solve for that. Be right back. Okay, so what I have here may not be specifically appropriate for a 10-year-old, might be a little bit young, but we'll go ahead and warm up the mic a little bit. And I like to satisfy all audiences, so give me just a second, and we're going to, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the camera. It's frozen again, but there we go. We're going to do this. So everybody who's here, be patient because this can't take that long. It's really thin. And we're going to do this for the 10-year-old, and then we'll move into Edwidge Danticat. How about that? This is Nappy Hair by Carol Livia Heron. Uncle Mordecai told this story at the backyard picnic. Uncle Mordecai told it. The folks joined in between the lines. Little Jimmy taped it, and here it is. Brenda, you sure do got some nappy hair on your head, don't you? Well, it's your hair, Brenda. Take the cake. Yep. And don't come back and get the plate, don't you know? It ain't easy to come by that kind of hair. No, it ain't. You just can't blame Africa. It's willful. That's what it is. Them some willful, intentional naps you got all over your head. Sure enough, your hair intended to be nappy. Indeed, it did. I mean, combing your hair. Yep. It's like scrunching through New Mexico deserts and brogans in the heat of summer. That's the way. It's like crunching through snow. Yep. About 2 feet, about a foot, 2 feet at least. Uh-huh. With 2 inches of crust on the top. I can hear it. Y'all know how it sounds when you're scrunching through snow like that? I can hear it. That's what her hair sound like when she comb it out in the morning. Brother, you ought to be ashamed. Ashamed? I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. She's the only one in her school knows how to talk right. Ain't she something? A rose among 1,000 thorns. I know it. Them old hardheads think they can talk English. Yep. But this child talks the king's English. I hear her. Talks the queen's English too. She can do it. But she sure, Lord, got some nappy hair on her head. Now that's why. Now why has he got to come back to that? And I'm gonna tell y'all how she came up with all this nappy hair. Brother, will you stop? Her hair was an act of God. Lord, listen to him now. An act of God that came straight through Africa. Well, you see, angels went on up to God. Oh, here it goes. Here it goes. Angels walk up to God to talk him out of it. Will you listen to this? Yep, they say, Lord, Lord, Lord. Well, why you gotta be so mean? Why you gotta be so willful? Why you gotta be so ornery thinking about giving that nappy hair to that innocent little child? Innocent. I'm curious to see where this is going, are y'all? Sweet little girl like that, and you napping up her hair like you ain't got good sense. That's what they said. Napping up her hair 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 complete circles per inch. Brother, I'm talking about 8 complete circles per inch of hair. Please. And the angels trying to talk him out of it. Yup. But God, well, God wanted himself some nappy hair upon the face of the earth. That's what it was. So God turned himself around, looked them angels square in the face, well, and God say, get out of my way. Yep. He say, this is my world. It's the truth. This my world. And this child, well, this sweet brown baby girl child, we hear you. She's going to have the nappiest hair in the world. That's what he said. Ain't gonna be nothing they come up with gonna straighten this child's hair. What you gonna do? I'm talking about straightening combs. Can it really be? I'm talking about relaxers and process. You said it. Ain't nothing gonna straighten up the naps on this child's head. What you say? And it was done. Ha! So here she come. Well, sitting back in Africa making plans. That's where it was. Squinching up her eyes and looking deep. She was deep. Getting ready to come to America with them slaves. Didn't we come over here? Let me get all that picture in there. Lord, you'd think I'd know how to angle a book. There's the picture. There we go. Sold your mama for a nickel. Yes, Lord, they did it. And your daddy for a dime. Yup. I say they sold your mama for a buffalo. That's the way it was. And your daddy, they sold him for one thin dime. That's what they did. But this nap come riding express coming on across the ocean from Africa wouldn't stop for nothing. Didn't she come? Danced right on through all the wimp hair, didn't want it, wouldn't stop, wouldn't mix, wouldn't slow down for nobody, wouldn't do it. Every time they tried to mess with her hair, I can see it. She stomped it, kicked it, snuck on around and came on through. That's what she did. Think she playing football, basketball or something. Yep, dribbling on down the line. She's the one. And when she was born, we remember. When she was born, we remember. When we looked down on the cradle, what did we see? We all shout out and jump back. Did we jump? Laugh and shout because I tell you, she had the kinkiest, the nappiest, the fuzziest, the most screwed up, squeezed up, knotted up, tangled up, twisted up, nappiest. I'm telling you, she had the nappiest hair you ever seen in your life. That's what it was. And the Lord, well, the Lord in heaven, what you say? The Lord who brought the Israelites out of Egypt, yes, he did. He looked down on this cute little brown baby girl. He looked at her. He looked at her and he say, well done. Yup. He say, I got me one. That's what he said. One nap of her hair is the only perfect circle in nature. Wow. I got me a cute little brown baby girl. Keep talking. I got me at long last this cute little brown baby girl. Wow. And she's got the nappiest hair in the world. Ain't it the truth? And thus endeth the story. That was Nappy Hair by Carol Livia Heron, illustrated by Joe Cepeda. This book comes to us. It was a gift from one of our lurking long listeners. I'm not going to say her name because she prefers to lurk. But this and the copy that we have of the new Zora Neale Hurston book came from that particular patron as well. And I'm glad that I got the opportunity to read that. And I hope, Phoenix, that that was enjoyable to you. And thank you so much for coming by Story Time. Now it is up to your auntie homie Lou to decide whether or not the rest of the program is appropriate for you. But we're going to move on into tonight's official story by Edwidge Danticat, the author of The Farming of Bones and Breath, Eyes, and Memory. This is from her book, Krik, Krak. And tonight's story is A Wall of Fire Rising. Listen to what happened today, Guy said as he barged through the rattling door of his tiny shack. His wife Lily was squatting in the middle of one of their one-room home, spreading cornmeal mush on banana leaves for their supper. Listen to what happened to me today. Guy's 7-year-old son, Little Guy, dashed from a corner and grabbed his father's hand. The boy dropped his composition notebook as he leaped to his father, nearly stepping into the corn mush and herring that his mother had set out in a trio of half-gourds on the clay floor. Our boy is in a play. Lily quickly robbed Little Guy of the honor of telling his father the news. A play? Guy affectionately stroked the boy's hair. The boy had such tiny corkscrew curls that no amount of brushing could ever make them all look like a single entity. Look at that, how it all comes together. The other boys at the Lycée Jean-Jacques called him Pepperhead because each separate kinky strand was coiled into a tight, tiny ball that looked like small peppercorns. When is this play? Guy asked both the boy and his wife. Are we going to have to buy new clothes for this? Lily got up from the floor and inclined her face toward her husband's in order to receive her nightly peck on the cheek. What role do you have in the play? Guy asked, slowly rubbing the tip of his nails across the boy's scalp. His fingers made a soft grating noise with each invisible circle drawn around the perimeters of the boy's head. Guy's fingers finally landed inside the boy's ears, forcing the boy to giggle until he almost gave himself the hiccups. Tell me, what is your part in the play? Guy asked again, pulling his fingers away from his son's ear. I am Bookman, the boy huffed out, as though there was some laughter caught in his throat. Show Papi your lines. Lily told the boy as she arranged the 3 open gourds on a piece of plywood raised like a table on 2 bricks in the middle of the room. My love, Bookman is the hero of the play. The boy went back to the corner where he had been studying and pulled out a thick book carefully covered in brown paper. You're going to spend a lifetime learning those. Guy took the book from the boy's hand and flipped through the pages quickly. He had to strain his eyes to see the words by the light of the old kerosene lamp, which that night, like all others, flickered as though it was burning its very last wick. All these words seem so long and heavy, Guy said. Pause. Haiti, France, Guy. Gonna switch all those guys to Guy and keep it moving. All these words seem so long and heavy, Guy said. You think you can do this, son? He has one very good speech, Lily said. Page 40, remember, son? The boy took back the book from his father. His face was crimped in an of course I remember look as he searched for page 40. Bookman. Guy struggled with the letters of the slave revolutionary's name as he looked over his son's shoulders. I see some very hard words here, son. He already knows his speech, Lily told her husband. Does he now? Asked Guy. We've been at it all afternoon, Lily said. Why don't you go on and recite that speech for your father? The boy tipped his head towards the rusting tin on the roof as he prepared to recite his lines. Lily wiped her hands on the old apron tied around her waist and stopped to listen. Remember what you are, Lily said. A great rebel leader. Remember, it is the revolution. Do we want him to be all of that? Guy asked. He is Bookman, Lily said. What is the only thing on your mind now, Bookman? Supper, Guy whispered, enviously eyeing the food cooling off in the middle of the room. He and the boy looked at each other and began to snicker. Tell us the other thing that is on your mind, Lily said, joining in their laughter. Freedom, shouted the boy, as he slipped quickly into his role. Louder, urged Lily. Freedom is on my mind, yelled the boy. Why don't you start, son? said Guy. If you don't, we'll never get to that other thing that we have on our minds. The boy closed his eyes and took a deep breath. At first, his lips parted, but nothing came out. Lily pushed her head forward as though she were holding her breath. Then, like the last burst of lightning out of the clearing sky, the boy began. A wall of fire is rising, and in the ashes I see the bones of my people. Not only those people whose dark, hollow faces I see daily in the fields, but all those souls who have gone ahead to haunt my dreams. At night, I relive once more the last caresses from the hand of a loving father, a valiant love, a beloved friend. It was obvious that this speech was written it was obvious that this was a speech written by a European man who gave to the slave revolutionary bookman the kind of European phrasing that might have sent the real bookman turning in his grave. However, the speech made Lily and Guy stand on the tips of their toes with great pride. As their applause thundered in the small space of their shack that night, they felt as though for a moment they had been given the rare pleasure of hearing the voice of one of the forefathers of Haitian independence in the forced baritone of their only child. The experience left them both with a strange feeling that they could not explain. It left the hair on the back of their necks standing on end. It left them feeling much more love than they ever knew they could add to their feeling for their son. Bravo, Lily cheered, pressing her son into the folds of her apron. Long live Bookman and long live my boy. Long live our supper, Guy said, quickly batting his eyelashes to keep tears from rolling down his face. The boy kept his eyes on his book as they ate their supper that night. Usually Guy and Lily would not have allowed that, but this was a special occasion. They watched proudly as the boy muttered his lines between swallows of cornmeal. The boy was still mumbling the same words as the three of them used the last of the rainwater trapped in an old gasoline container and sugarcane pulp from the nearby sugarcane mill to scrub the calabashes that they had eaten from. When things were really bad for the family, they boiled clean sugarcane pulp to make what Lily called her special sweet water tea. It was supposed to suppress gas and kill the vermin in the stomach that made the poor children hungry. That and a pinch of salt under the tongue could usually quench hunger until Guy found a day's work, or Lily could manage to buy spices on credit and then peddle them for a profit in the marketplace. That night, anyway, things were good. Everyone had eaten enough to put all their hunger vermin to sleep. The boy was sitting in front of the shack, an old plastic bucket turned upside down, straining his eyes to find the words on the page. Sometimes when there was no kerosene for the lamp, the boy would have to go sit by the side of the road and study under the street lamps with the rest of the neighborhood children. Tonight, at least, they had a bit of their own light. Guy bent down by a small clump of old mushrooms near the boy's feet, trying to get a better look at the plant. He emptied the last drops of rainwater from a gasoline container on the mushroom, wetting the bulging toes sticking out his son's sandals, which were already coming apart under his endlessly growing feet. Guy tried to pluck some of the mushrooms, which were being pushed into the dust as they wanted to grow beneath the ground and as roots. He took one of the mushrooms in his hand, running his smallest finger over the round bulb. He clipped the stem and buried the top in a thick strand of his wife's hair. The mushroom looked like a dried insect in Lily's hair. It sure makes you look special, Guy said, teasing her. Thank you so much, Lily said, tapping her husband's arm. It's nice to know that I deserve these much more than roses. Taking his wife's hand, Guy said, let's go to the sugar mill. Can I study my lines there? The boy asked. You know them well enough already, Guy said. I need many repetitions, the boy said. Their feet sounded as though they were playing a wet wind instrument as they slipped in and out of the puddles between the shacks in the shantytown. Near the sugar mill was a large television screen in an iron-grilled cage that the government had installed so that the shantytown dwellers could watch the state-sponsored news at 8 o'clock every night. After the news, a gendarme would come and turn off the television set, taking home the key. On most nights, the people stayed at the site long after this gendarme had gone and told stories to one another beneath the big blank screen. They made bonfires with dried sticks, corn husks, and paper, cursing the authorities under their breath. There was a crowd already gathering for the nightly news event. The sugar mill workers sat at the front row in chairs or on old buckets. Lily and Guy passed the group, clinging to their son so that his childhood naivete wouldn't accidentally glance at the wrong person and be called an insolent child. They didn't like the ambience of the nightly news watch. They spared themselves trouble by going instead to the sugar mill, where in the past year they had discovered their own wonder. Everyone knew that the family who owned the sugar mill were eccentric Arabs, Haitians of Lebanese or Palestinian descent whose family had been in the country for generations. The Assad family had a son who, it seems, was into all manner of odd things, the most recent of which was a hot air balloon, which he had brought to Haiti from America and occasionally flew over the shantytown skies. As they approached the fence surrounding the field where the large wicker basket and deflated balloon rested on the ground, Guy let go of the hands of both his wife and the boy. Lily walked on slowly with her son. For the last few weeks, she had been feeling as though Guy was lost to her each time he reached this point, 12 feet away from the balloon. As Guy pushed his hand through the barbed wire, she could tell from the look on his face that he was thinking of sitting inside the square basket with the smooth rainbow surface of the balloon itself floated over his head. During the day, when the field was open, Guy would walk up to the basket staring at it with the same kind of longing that most men display when they admire very pretty girls. Lily and the boy stood watching from a distance as Guy tried to push his hand deeper beyond the chain link fence that separated him from the balloon. He reached into his pants pocket and pulled out a small pocket knife, sharpening the edges on the metal surface of the fence. When his wife and child moved closer, he put the knife back in his pocket, letting his fingers slide across his son's tightly coiled curls. I wager you I can make this thing fly, Guy said. Why do you think you can do that? Lily asked. I know it, Guy replied. He followed her as she circled the sugar mill, leading to their favorite spot under a watch light. Little Guy lagged faithfully behind them. From this distance, the hot air balloon looked like an odd spaceship. Lily stretched her body out in the knee-high grass in the field. Guy reached over and tried to touch her between her legs. You're not one to worry, Lily, he said. You're not afraid of the frogs, lizards, or snakes that could be hiding in this grass. I'm here with my husband, she said. You are here to protect me if anything happens. Guy reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a lighter and a crumpled piece of paper. He lit the paper until it burned to an ashy film. The burning paper floated in the night breeze for a while, landing in fragments on the grass. Did you see that, Lily? Guy asked with a flame in his eyes brighter than the lighters. Did you see how the paper floated down when it was burned? This is how that balloon flies. What did you mean by saying you could make it fly? Lily asked. You already know all my secrets, Guy said as the boy came charging towards them. Papa, could you play Lago with me? The boy asked. Lily lay peacefully on the grass as her son and husband played hide and seek. Guy kept hiding and his son kept finding him each time Guy made it easier for the boy. We rest now. Guy was becoming breathless. The stars were circling the peaks of the mountains, dipping into the cane fields belonging to the sugar mill. As Guy caught his breath, the boy raced around the fence, running as fast as he could to purposefully make himself dizzy. Listen to what happened today, Guy whispered softly in Lily's ear. I heard you say that when you walked in the house tonight, Lily said. With the boys' play, I forgot to ask you. The boy sneaked up behind them, his face lit up, though his brain was spinning. He wrapped his arms around both their necks. We will go back home soon, Lily said. Can I recite my lines? Asked the boy. We have heard them, Guy said. Don't tire your lips. The boy mumbled something under his breath. Guy grabbed his ear and twirled it until it was a tiny ball in his hand. The boy's face contorted with agony as Guy made him kneel deep in the grass in punishment. Lily looked tortured, as she watched the boy squirming in the grass, obviously terrified of the crickets, lizards, and small snakes that might be there. Perhaps we should take him home to bed, she said. He will never learn, Guy said, if I say one thing and you say another. Guy got up angrily and started walking home. Lily walked over, took her son's hand, and raised him from his knees. You know you must not mumble, she said. I was saying my lines, the boy said. Next time say them loud, Lily said, so he knows what is coming out of your mouth. That night, Lily could hear her son muttering his lines as he tucked himself into his corner of the room and drifted off to sleep. The boy still had the book with his monologue in it, clasped under his arm as he slept. Guy stayed outside in front of the shack as Lily undressed for bed. She loosened the ribbon that held the old light blue cotton skirt around her waist and let it drop past her knees. She grabbed half a lemon that she kept in the corner by the folded mat that she and Guy unrolled to sleep on every night. Lily let her blouse drop to the floor as she smoothed the lemon over her ashen legs. Guy came in just at that moment and saw her bare chest by the light of the smaller castor oil lamp that they used for the later hours of the night. Her skin had coarsened a bit over the years, he thought. Her breasts now drooped from having nursed their son for 2 years after he was born. It was now easier for him to imagine their son's lips around those breasts than to imagine his anywhere near them. He turned his face away as she fumbled for her nightgown. He helped her open the mat, tucking the blanket edges underneath. Fully clothed, Guy dropped down onto the mat next to her. He laid his head on her chest, rubbing the spiky edges of his hair against her nipples. What was it that happened today? Lily asked, running her fingers along Guy's hairline, an angular hairline almost like a triangle in the middle of his forehead. She nearly didn't marry him because it was said that people with angular hairlines often have very troubled lives. I got a few hours' work for tomorrow at the sugar mill, Guy said. That's what happened today. It was such a long time coming, Lily said. It was almost 6 months since the last time Guy had gotten work there. The jobs at the sugar mill were few and far between. The people who had them never left, or when they did, they would pass the job on to another family member who was already waiting on the line. Guy did not seem overjoyed about the one day's work. I wish I had paid more attention when you came in with the news, Lily said. I was just so happy about the boy. I was born in the shadow of that sugar mill, Guy said. Probably the first thing my mother gave me to drink as a baby was some sweet water tea from the pulp of the sugar cane. If anyone deserves to work there, I should. What will you be doing for your day's work? Would you really like to know? There's never any shame in honest work, she said. They want me to scrub the latrines. It's honest work, Lily said, trying to console him. I am still number 78 on the permanent hire list, he said. I was thinking of putting the boy on the list now, so maybe by the time he becomes a man, he can be up for a job. Lily's body jerked forward, rising straight up in the air. Guy's head dropped with a loud thump onto the mat. I don't want him on that list, she said. For a young boy to be on any list like that might influence his destiny. I don't want him on the list. Look at me, Guy said. If my father had worked there, if he had me on the list, don't you think I would be working? If you have any regard for me, she said, you will not put him on the list. She groped for her husband's chest in the dark and laid her head on it. She could hear his heart beating loudly as though it were pumping double, triple its normal rate. You won't put the boy on any list, will you? She implored. Please, Lily, no more about the boy. He will not go on the list. Thank you. Tonight I was looking at that balloon in the yard behind the sugar mill, he said. I have been watching it real close. I know. I have seen the man who owns it, he said. I've seen him get in it and put it in the sky and go up there like it was some kind of kite, and he was the kite master. I see the men who run after it trying to figure out where it will land. Once I was there, and I was one of those men who were running, and I actually guessed correctly. I picked a spot on the cleared sugarcane fields. I picked the spot from a distance and it actually landed there. Let me say something to you, Guy. Pretend that this is the time of miracles and we believed in them. I watched the owner for a long time, and I think I can fly that balloon. The first time I saw him do it, it looked like a miracle, but the more and more I saw it, the more ordinary it became. You're probably intelligent enough to do it, she said. I am intelligent enough to do it. You're right to say that I can. Don't you think about hurting yourself? Think like this. Can't you see yourself up there, up in the clouds somewhere like some kind of bird? If God wanted people to fly, he would have given us wings on our backs. You're right, Lily, you're right. But look what he gave us instead. He gave us reasons to want to fly. He gave us the air, the birds, our sun. I don't understand you, she said. Our son, your son. You do not want him cleaning latrines. He can do other things. Me too. I can do other things too. A loud scream came from the corner where the boy was sleeping. Lily and Guy rushed to him and tried to wake him. The boy was trembling when he opened his eyes. What's the matter? Guy asked. I cannot remember my lines, the boy said. Lily tried to string together what she could remember of her son's lines. The words slowly came back to the boy. By the time he fell back to sleep, it was almost dawn. The light was slowly coming up behind the trees. Lily could hear the whispers of the market women, their hisses and swearing as their sandals dug into the sharp-edged rocks on the road. She turned her back to her husband and she slipped out of her nightgown, quickly putting on her day clothes. Imagine this, Guy said from the mat on the floor. I have never really seen your entire body in broad daylight. Lily shut the door behind her, making her way out to the yard. The empty gasoline containers rested easily on her head as she walked a few miles to the public water fountains. It was harder to keep them steady when the containers were full. The water splashed all over her blouse and rippled down her back. The sky was blue as it was most mornings, a dark indigo shaded turquoise that would get lighter when the sun was fully risen. Guy and the boy were standing in the yard waiting for her when she got back. You did not get much sleep, my handsome boy, she said, running her wet fingers over the boy's face. He'll be late for school if we do not go right now, Guy said. I want to drop him off before I start work. Do we remember our lines this morning? Lily asked, tucking the boy's shirt down deep in his short pants. We just recited them, Guy said. Even I know them now. Lily watched them walk down the footpath, her eyes following them until they disappeared. As soon as they were out of sight, she poured the water she had fetched into a large calabash, letting it stand beside the house. She went back into the room and slipped into a dry blouse. It was never too early to start looking around, to scrape together that night's meal. Listen to what happened again today, Lily said when Guy walked through the door that afternoon. Guy blotted his face with a dust rag as he prepared to hear the news. After the day he'd had at the factory, he wanted to sit under a tree and have a leisurely smoke, but he did not want to set a bad example for his son by indulging his very small pleasures. You tell him, son, Lily urged the boy, who was quietly sitting in a corner reading. I've got more lines, the boy announced, springing up to his feet. Poppy, do you want to hear them? They are giving him more things to say in the play, Lily explained, because he did such a good job memorizing so fast. My compliments, son. Do you have your new lines memorized too? Guy asked. Why don't you recite your new lines for your father? Lily said. The boy walked to the middle of the room and prepared to recite. He cleared his throat, raising his eyes toward the ceiling. There is so much sadness in the faces of my people. I have called on their gods now. I call on our gods. I call on our young. I call on our old. I call on our mighty and the weak. I call on everyone and anyone so that we shall all let out one piercing cry that we may either live freely or we should die. I see your new lines have as much drama as the old ones, Guy said. He wiped a tear away, walked over to the chair, and took the boy in his arms. He pressed the boy's body against his chest before lowering him to the ground. Your new lines are wonderful, son. They're every bit as affecting as the old. He tapped the boy's shoulder and walked out of the house. What's the matter with Poppy? The boy asked as the door slammed shut behind Guy. His heart hurts, Lily said. After supper, Lily took her son to the field where she knew her husband would be. While the boy ran around, she found her husband sitting in his favorite spot behind the sugar mill. Nothing, Lily, he said. Ask me nothing about this day that I have had. She sat down on the grass next to him, for once feeling the sharp edges of the grass blades against her ankles. You're really good with that boy, he said, drawing a circle with his smallest finger on her elbow. You will make a performer of him. I know you will. You can see the best in that whole situation. It's because you have those stars in your eyes. That's the first thing I noticed about you when I met you. It was your eyes, Lily. So dark and deep. They drew me like danger draws a fool. He turned over on the grass so that he was staring directly at the moon up in the sky. She could tell that he was also watching the hot air balloon behind the sugar mill fence out of the corner of his eye. Sometimes I want to know, sometimes I know you want to believe in me, he said. I know you're wishing things for me. You want me to work at the mill. You want me to get a pretty house for us. I know you want these things too, but mostly you want me to feel like a man. That's why you're not one to worry about, Lily. I know you can take things as they come. I don't like it when you talk this way, she said. Listen to this, Lily. I want to tell you a secret. Sometimes I just want to take that big balloon and ride it up in the air. I'd like to sail off somewhere and keep floating until I got to a really nice place with a nice plot of land where I could be something new. I'd build my own house, keep my own garden, just be something new. I want you to stay away from there. I know you don't think I should take it. That can't keep me from wanting. You could be injured. Do you ever think about that? Don't you ever want to be something new? I don't like it, she said. Please don't get angry with me, he said, his voice straining almost like the boy's. If you were to take that balloon and fly away, who would take me and would you take me and the boy? First, you don't want me to take it and now you want to go. I just want to know that when you dream, me and the boy, we're always in your dreams. He leaned his head on her shoulders and drifted off to sleep. Her back ached as she sat there with his face pressed against her collarbone. He drooled, and the saliva dripped down to her breast, soaking her frayed polyester bra. She listened to the crickets while watching her son play, muttering his lines to himself as he went in a circle around the field. The moon was glowing above their heads, winking at them, as Guy liked to say, on its way to brighter shores. Opening his eyes, Guy asked her, how do you think a man is judged after he's gone? How did he expect her to answer something like that? People don't eat riches, she said. They eat what it can buy. What does that mean, Lily? Don't talk to me in parables. Talk to me honestly. A man is judged by his deeds, she said. The boy never goes to bed hungry. For as long as he's been with us, he's always been fed. Just as if he had heard himself mentioned, the boy came dashing from the other side of the field, crashing in a heap on his two parents. My new lines, he said. I have forgotten my new lines. Is this how you will be the day of this play, son? Guy asked. When people give you big responsibilities, you have to try to live up to them. The boy had relearned his new lines by the time they went to bed. That night, Guy watched his wife very closely as she undressed for bed. I would like to be the one to rub that piece of lemon on your knees tonight, he said. She handed him the half lemon, then raised her skirt above her knees. Her body began to tremble as he rubbed his fingers over her skin. You know that question I asked you before, he said. How a man is remembered after he's gone? I know the answer now, because I remember my father, who was a very poor, struggling man all his life. I remember him as a man that I would never want to be. Lily got up with the break of dawn the next day. The light came up quickly above the trees. Lily greeted some of the market women as they walked together to the public water fountain. On her way back, the sun had already melted a few gray clouds. She found the boy standing alone in the yard with a terrified expression on his face. The old withered mushrooms uprooted at his feet. He ran up to meet her, nearly knocking her off balance. What happened? She asked. Have you forgotten your lines? The boy was breathing so heavily that his lips could not form a single word. What is it? Lily asked, almost shaking him with anxiety. It's Papa, he said finally, raising a stiff finger in the air. The boy covered his face as his mother looked up at the sky. A rainbow-colored balloon was floating aimlessly above their heads. It's Papa, the boy said. He's in it. She wanted to look down at her son and tell him that it wasn't his father, but she immediately recognized the spindly arms and a bright flowered shirt that she had made, gripping the cables. From the field behind the sugar mill, a group of workers were watching the balloon floating in the air. Many were clapping and cheering, calling out Guy's name. A few of the women were waving their head rags at the sky, shouting, Go, beautiful, go! Lily edged her way to the front of the crowd. Everyone was waiting, watching the balloon drift higher up into the clouds. He seems to be right over our heads, said the factory foreman, a short, slender mulatto with large buck teeth. Just then, Lily noticed young Assad, his thick black hair sticking to the beads of sweat on his forehead. His face had the crumpled expression of disrupted sleep. He's further away than he seems, said young Assad. I still don't understand. How did he get up there? You need a whole crew to fly these things. I don't know, the foreman said. One of my workers just came in saying there was a man flying above the factory. But how the hell did he start it? Young Assad was perplexed. He just did it, the foreman said. Look, he's trying to get out, someone hollered. A chorus of screams broke out among the workers. The boy was looking up, trying to see if his father was really trying to jump out of the balloon. Guy was climbing over the side of the basket. Lily pressed her son's face into her skirt. Within seconds, Guy was in the air, hurtling down towards the crowd. Lily held her breath as she watched him fall. He crashed not far from where Lily and the boy were standing, his blood immediately soaking the landing spot. The balloon kept floating free, drifting on its way to brighter shores. Young Assad rushed towards the body. He dropped to his knees and checked the wrist for a pulse, then dropped the arm back to the ground. It's over, the foreman ordered the workers back to work. Lily tried to keep her son's head pressed against her skirt as she moved closer to the body. The boy yanked himself away and raced to the edge of the field where his father's body was lying on the grass. He reached the body as young Assad still knelt examining the corpse. Lily rushed after him. He is mine, she said to young Assad. He is my family. He belongs to me. Young Assad got up and raised his head to search the sky for his aimless balloon, trying to guess where it would land. He took one last look at Guy's bloody corpse, then raced to his car and sped away. The foreman and another worker carried a cot and blanket from the factory. Little Guy was breathing quickly as he looked at his father's body on the ground. While the foreman draped a sheet over Guy's corpse, his son began to recite the lines from his play. A wall of fire is rising. And in the ashes, I see the bones of my people. Not only those people whose dark, hollow faces I see daily in the fields, but all those souls who have gone ahead to haunt my dreams. At night, I relive once more the last caresses from the hand of a loving father, a valiant love, a beloved friend. Let me look at him one last time, Lily said, pulling back the sheet. She leaned in very close to get a better look at Guy's face. There was little left of the countenance that she had loved so much. Those lips that curled when he was teasing her, that large flat nose that felt like a feather when rubbed against hers, and those eyes, those night-colored eyes. Though clouded with blood, Guy's eyes were still bulging open. Lily was searching for some kind of sign, a blink, a smile, a wink, something that would remind her of the man she had married. His eyes aren't closed, the foreman said to Lily. Do you want to close them or should I? The boy continued reciting his lines, his voice rising to a man's grieving roar. He kept his eyes closed, his fist balled at his side as he continued with his newest lines. There is so much sadness in the faces of my people. I have called on their gods. Now I call on our gods. I call on our young. I call on our old. I call on our mighty and the weak. I call on everyone and anyone so that we shall all let out one piercing cry, that we may either live freely or we should die. Do you want me to close the eyes? The foreman repeated impatiently. No, leave them open, Lily said. My husband, he likes to look at the sky. And thus endeth the story. Wow, y'all. Wow. That was A Wall of Fire is Rising by Edwidge Danticat from the collection Krik, Krak, which was her second published work. Really powerful, really potent story. Heart-wrenching. Definitely heart-wrenching. Some beautiful description laced in among the tragedy. I don't know about you guys, but as I was reading that, I got hints of um the tone not Toni Morrison, my goodness. The Zora Neale Hurston story that we read just a couple of episodes back. Um John Goes to Sea. Goodness. We read so many stories that it's often difficult for me to remember the title. But for those of you all who were in attendance, you remember it was another story about a young man with family obligations and a almost debilitating need for freedom. And I say almost debilitating because the freedom that both of these characters were looking for made it almost impossible for them to exist in the lives that they had. This man had a beautiful wife who loved him, a son who absolutely adored him, but work prospects were slim, and um, clearly they lived in poverty. But there was joy there. There was happiness there to be had. But he was called away by something else. And that call from something else had a hold on him that just wouldn't let him go. And when I think about the story that we read, the Zora Neale Hurston story, it was the same situation for that young man. That wanderlust, that need to travel, that need to see and explore the world. So I find it somewhat fascinating to read from these two women of two distinctly different generations who grew up in different parts of the world, who are writing the stories of these men with the same thirst and need and desire for a freedom that escapes them. I find the parallels interesting. You know, there was a father-son relationship in both of them, though here it was the father who had the need to get away. Um, and in Zora Neale Hurston's story, it was the son. Let me go back and pick up some of these comments. First of all, for those of you all who were here for the reading of Nappy Hair, if you want to get that for your own young one, or maybe just for yourself, you can purchase Nappy Hair by Carol Livia Heron at Blackstone Bookstore. And we've got a link here. You know how we do with Storytime with Julian. We always like to support local bookstores. Excuse me, goodness, that's embarrassing. Local bookstores and Black bookstores. So by all means, if you are so inclined, you can go ahead and pick up a copy of Nappy Hair at the link that's here. If you're following us on Facebook, you'll be able to find it in the scroll. If you're watching us on the YouTubes or on Twitch, you're going to need to go back and copy this down. I see from Homie Lou that Phoenix was really happy with the story, Nappy Hair. So I'm glad to hear that. That makes me really happy. So let her know that we were more than happy to do it, and thank her again for swinging by. I like to have multi generational story time with Julian. It's always a treat. Akanke said that she was glad that we got that special treat because of Phoenix. So thanks for that. And Angel Monique noticed one of the things that I noticed, that tightly coiled curls seem to be in the order of the evening. I did not know that that was going to happen like that, but I was really glad that it did. There was a certain poetry and symmetry in moving from that story about nappy hair and the celebration of the rebelliousness of those naps, and then we come to a story where this young man, this schoolboy who is reading a story, or who is reading a part as a rebel leader, and one of the things that is notable about him is his indomitable naps. I kind of dig that. Not even kind of. I really dig that. Yes, Gwen, you were just a little bit late, but we're so glad to have you here. I appreciate you announcing yourself. And if there's anybody else here who has joined who has not shouted themselves out, go ahead and let me know that you're here. I just like knowing who is swinging by to see us, and also let me hear some of your thoughts about this story. I'm starting to get to some of those now. Angela Lee Rains picked out one of the lines that I like too. He gave us reasons to want to fly. Um, and I think, just that whole theme that I was talking about earlier with the sort of sense of inspiration made that particularly potent for me. Gwen says that the intimate details make her feel like she's intruding on their little family. It's very tender writing. Yes. Perfect description, Gwen. It was written very tenderly. All those little quiet moments, almost throwaway moments, but when they're handled that delicately, they all mean something. Every little touch, every time he dragged his finger somewhere along her body or somewhere along his son's head, those kinds of little moments, the way he touched the mushrooms, all of that, just it felt so tender. Absolutely perfect description. I loved it. Um, a lot of you showed your reactions to the tragic death of Guy. Erica Yolita calling it beautifully tragic. Angel Monique calling it heartbreakingly beautiful. Akanke says that she loves the simplicity and power of that last line, and I am really wishing that I hadn't closed the book so quickly. Let's go ahead and go back to that last line, though. No, leave them open, Lily said. My husband, he likes to look at the sky. And that reminded me so much of John in Zora Neale Hurston's book, who they left floating. His dad insisted that he be allowed to just float on because that's what he would have wanted, because that's ultimately the freedom that he was looking for. Um, Absolutely potent and powerful. If you enjoyed this story, or if you recall some of the other stories that we've read from Krak, we encourage you to pick up a copy of Krak. It's available at Blackstone Bookstore, just like Nappy Hair is. There's a link here for those of you who are following on Facebook, but be sure to check that out. John Redding goes to sea. Thank you so much, Angel Monique. I was really struggling. Um, and thank you again for our moderators. The story that we read by Zora Neale Hurston, the one that I'm referring to, is John Redding Goes Out to Sea. If I'm not mistaken, if I believe that was Zora Neale Hurston's first published story. I believe that was her first published story. So yeah, that was but you guys see the balance there, I think. Let's see. Blackstone Bookstore and Cultural Center is an independent African American bookstore located. You can see I was trying to reach ahead to. I'm not gonna say that it's in Michigan, y'all. There you go. Hey, Dr. Linda Javers, good to have you join us. Thank you so much for coming in. Don't worry about being late. Just glad that you brought your face into the place. Erica Yolita says, you now realize he was gently and slowly running his fingers through his wife's body and sun hair. He was keeping a mental picture to keep with him as he willfully transitioned. Yo, I hadn't even thought that through, but yes, yes, because he already knew what he was doing. Mm, wow. Okay. Just, I don't know why that didn't even occur to me, but now that you say it, yeah, he was absolutely positively, um, he was making that map. He was making that map. Really, really powerful. Um, Great observation. Thank you so much. See, this is what I like. I like when you all tell me your thoughts and share with me because sometimes I get the opportunity to see something brand new because I'm reading it and discovering it just like you are. And sometimes I'm so much in that moment of trying to make sure that I'm performing the lines well, that I'm comprehending the words that I'm saying before I actually push them out, that I don't always capture the deeper meanings. I try to latch on to everything, but sometimes I miss stuff. So when you all share like that, this is it's a blessing and a bonus to me too. L Jack is here. What's happening, L Jack? Good to have you in the building. He says that so many black only find the freedom that they are looking for in death. And then he edited to say black people. True that. That is definitely a continuing conversation for a lot of folk. And I get it, but man, I'm trying to find that freedom here on this earth. It's a big part of the Black Christian tradition to talk about, life on the other side and eternal life and the blessing that that's going to be. But listen, I'm trying to find it on this side too. All right. We've got a little bit of time left, and I said in the description that um, we would read one story from Edwidge Danticat, and then whatever time allowed. This is another cold read. Have not read this before, but I'm excited about it because it's Edwidge Danticat's birthday, and I also love this writer, Tony Cade Bombara. This is from Gorilla My Love, and we are going to read the story Happy Birthday. You guys are going to give me just a minute so that I can take a sip of water and kind of get my throat together. And then we'll do this other story and then we'll call it a night. All right. Thanks a lot. All right. Now, again, for reasons that I don't quite understand, it looks like the screen is frozen. So I'm going to try and unfreeze it and see what happens. Yeah, that ain't it. I don't know what's going on. But we are going to go ahead anyway so you guys can look at the study jewels image while the camera catches up to us. But if you can hear me, let me know. I'm going to look in the comments to make sure you guys can still hear me. I see that. Let's see. Linda Chavers offers that Richard Wright was definitely about Black freedom and controlling one's inevitable demise at white supremacy, and for some reason hated Hurston. Um, That's interesting because there is a foundation, the Wright Hurston Foundation, which is responsible for publishing one of the books that we read from pretty commonly, Gumbo. So he may have hated her, but their names are inextricably linked together in in that particular organization. Judy Lee said there's a lot to be said for making your life on this side too, and I agree wholeheartedly. Joker adds, on earth as it is in heaven, we're supposed to experience that freedom and joy here too. Amen. A whole lot of churching going on that, and I like it. I'm here for it. Erica Yolita says, this is one of the few times that I see suicide not as a cry for help, but as a peaceful decision to live the life they've always wanted fully. It just saddens me for those he left behind. I think anytime we deal with stories of someone taking their own life, it's very, very it's difficult. It's challenging to be able to reconcile that, even when that person may have been seeking or even finding peace for themselves, there is still the horror and the tragedy of the whole thing. I find it difficult to speak about it in peaceful terms because I recognize and am familiar with the turmoil that leads up to that decision. Um, But anyway, it looks like you guys can hear me, and it looks like the camera is kind of back. So while there might be a little bit of a lag and delay, we're going to go ahead with Happy Birthday by Tony K. Bombara. And I don't know, did I make a banner for that one? I didn't put up the banner for the last one, but I'll put up this one because I remembered. This is a little short one, so we should be able to move through it with ease. Happy birthday. Ollie spent the whole morning waiting. First, she tried shaking Granddaddy Larkins, who just wouldn't wake up. She thought he was just playing, but he was out. His teeth weren't even in the glass, and there was a bottle on the bedstand. He'd be asleep for days. Then she waited on the cellar steps for Chalky, the building superintendent, to get through hauling garbage and come talk. But he was too busy. And then Ollie sat on the stairs waiting for Wilma. But it was Saturday, and Wilma'd be holed up somewhere, stuffing herself with potato chips and crunching down on jawbreakers, too greedy to cool it and eat 'em slow. Wilma'd come by tomorrow, though, and lie her behind off. I went to Bear Mountain yesterday on a big boat with my brother Chestnut and his wife, she'd say. And that's why I didn't come by for you, because we left so early in the morning that my mother even had to get me up when it was still dark out. And we had a great time, and I shot bows and arrows. And when we got there, and do you like my new dress? Wilma always had some jive tale, and always in one breath. Ollie tried to figure out why she was even friends with Wilma. Wilma was going to grow up to be a lady and marry a doctor and live in New York, Wilma's mother said. But Ollie, poor orphan, was going to grow up and marry a drinking man if she didn't get killed first, Wilma's mother had said. Ollie never told Granddaddy Larkins what Wilma's mother was all the time saying. She just hated her in private. Ollie spent the early afternoon sitting on the rail in front of the Chicken Shack restaurant, watching the cook sling the wire baskets of chicken in and out of the frying fat. They were too sweaty and tired to tell her to move from in front. Ruining the business, the owner used to fuss. Later, she stood between the laundry and the shoe store, watching some men pitch pennies against the building. She waited for a while, squeezing a rubber ball in her hand. If I can just get the wall for a minute, she thought, maybe somebody come along and we'll have us a good game of handball. But the men went right on pitching while the other ones were waiting their turn. They'd be there for hours, so Ollie left. She knocked on Mrs. Robinson's door to see if she wanted her dog walked. It was cool in the hallway, at least. No one was home, not even the loudmouth dog that usually slammed itself against the door like he was big and bad instead of just being a sorry little mutt. Then Ollie took the stairs, two at a time, swinging up past the fourth floor to the roof. There was rice all over. Ronnie must have already fed his pigeons. The door to the roof was unlocked, and that meant the big boys were on the roof. She planted her behind against the door and pushed. She kicked at a cluster of rice. Some grains bounced off the soft tar of the roof and sank. When Ollie moved onto the roof, the blinding sun made her squint. And there they were, the big boys, jammed between the skylight and the chimney like dummies in a window, just doing nothing and looking half asleep. Peter Proper, as always, was dressed to the teeth. I naturally stays clean, he was always saying. Today he said nothing, just sitting. Marbles, a kid from the projects, had an open book on his knees. James was there too, staring at a fingernail, and Furman, the nut from cross town, and Frenchie, the athlete. A flurry of cinders floated down from the chimney and settled into their hair like gray snow. Why don't you just sit in the incinerator? You can get even dirtier that way, Ollie yelled. No one moved or said anything. She expected Frenchie to at least say, "Here comes Miss Freshmouth," or for Peter to send her to the store for 18 cents worth of American cheese. It was always 18 cents worth, and he always handed her a quarter and a nickel. Big time. Don't none of you want nothing from the store today? She squinted with her hands on her hips, waiting for the store dummies to start acting like Marbles, Peter, James, and so forth. Furman straightened out a leg against the skylight. Ollie, when are you going to learn how to play with dolls? You want anything from the store, Furman fruitcake? I'm too big for dolls. Ollie hitched up her jeans. Furman started to say something, but his audience was nearly asleep. Frenchie's head was nodding. James was staring into space. The pages of the open book on Marble's knees were turning backwards 3 at a time by themselves. Peter Proper was sitting very straight back against the chimney with his eyes closed to the sun. Ollie turned, looking over the edge of the roof. There was no one in the park today. There was hardly anyone on the block. She propped a sticky foot against the roof railing and scraped off the tar. Everything below was gray, as if the chimney had snowed on the whole block. Chalky, the superintendent, was rolling a mattress onto a cart. Maybe he'd play cards with her. Just last Friday he had. But sometimes he wouldn't even remember her or would run and hide, thinking she was King Kong come down to hit him in the head or something. Ollie looked past the swings to the track. Empty. Frenchie should be out there trotting, she thought, looking back at him. But he was dipping his head. Sometimes she'd trot beside Frenchie, taking big jumps just to keep up. He'd smile at her but never teased her about the silly little jumps. He'd tell her for the 100th time how he was going to enter the Olympics and walk off with a cup full of money. Go away, little girl. Furman had just yelled at her as if he'd forgotten her name or didn't know her anymore. He's as crazy as Chalky, thought Ollie, slamming the big roof door behind her and running down the stairs to the street. They must be brothers. It was now 4 o'clock by the bank clock. Ollie remembered the barbecue place that had burned down, but she'd already rummaged through the ruins and found nothing. No use messing up her sneakers any further. She turned around to look the block over. Empty. Everyone was either at camp or at work or was just sleeping like the boys on the roof, or dead, or just plain gone off. She perched on the top of the fire hydrant with one foot, balancing with her arms. She could almost see through the high windows of Mount Zion AME Church. This time I'm going to fly off and kill myself, she yelled, flapping her arms. A lady with bundles turned the corner and gave Ollie a look, crossed against the traffic, looking over her shoulder and shaking her head at what the kids of today had come to. Reverend Hall came out of the church basement, mopping his head with a big handkerchief. You go play somewhere else, he said, frowning into the sun. Where? Ollie asked. Well, go to the park and play. With who? She demanded. I got nobody to play with. Reverend Hall just stood there trying to control his temper. He was always chasing the kids. That's why he's got no choir, Granddaddy Larkins was always saying. He always chases kids and dogs and pigeons and drunks. Little girl, you can't act like that up here in front of the church. Have you know? How come you always calling me little girl, but you sure know my name when I'm walking with my grandfather? Ollie said. Tell him all about his sanctified self, said Miss Hazel, laughing out her window. But when the Reverend looked up to scowl, she ducked back in. He marched back into the church, shooing the pigeons off the steps. Wish me happy birthday, Ollie whispered to the pigeons. They hurried off toward the curb. Better wish me happy birthday, she yelled, or somebody round here is going to get wasted. Miss Hazel leaned out the window again. What's with you, Ollie? You sick or something? You should never have a birthday in summertime, Ollie yelled, because nobody's around to wish you happy birthday or give you a party. Well, don't cry, sugar. When you get as old as me, you'll be glad to forget all about. I'm not crying, Ollie stamped her foot. But the tears kept coming, and before she could stop herself, she was howling, right there in the middle of the street, and not even caring who saw her. And she howled so loudly that even Miss Hazel's great grandmother had to come to the window to see who was dying and with so much noise on such a lovely day. "What's the matter with the Larkins, child?" asked the old woman. "Beats me." Miss Hazel shook her head and watched Ollie for a minute. "I don't understand kids sometimes," she sighed and closed the window so she could hear the television good. And thus endeth the story. Oh, poor little, poor little Ollie. Didn't nobody remember her birthday. It's a sad little cute story. But that was Happy Birthday, which is a part of this collection, Gorilla My Love, by Tony Cade Bambara. Tony Cade Bambara, the first time we read her on the show, emerged as a new fave. I really, really like her style. This story, a little bit flat, doesn't have quite the same punch as some of the other ones that we've read. But one of the things that I'm noticing about her work is that she writes these spunky, edgy little girls who have no qualms about getting up in grown folks' faces. If you guys remember the story Gorilla My Love, in that one, the little girl at the center of that story got in everybody's face. And at the end of it, well, I don't want to spoil it for those of you all who haven't read it. It's available in the archives, which you'll be able to find on YouTube. You should definitely check that episode out. Just go to the page. I don't remember which episode it is, but if you go to the YouTube page, just look for Gorilla My Love. Um, but it was a really, really cute story. I see some new folks have joined in, and I just want to make sure that I acknowledge them. So, Dexter Smith, this is your first time here. So glad to have you here. Thank you so much for swinging by. Um, and let's see, I thought I saw another name that I hadn't seen before. No, all right, so that's right. We already talked about Dr. Chavers. Dr. Chavers shared with us a little bit of insight on the relationship between Richard Wright and Zora Neale Hurston. Definitely going to have to check that one out. Um, but that is it, y'all. That has been Story Time with Julian, and we are right about at the hour. It's 11:14. So thank you so much for coming out, for spending this time with us. Would love to have you come back on Thursday. If it's your first time coming out, please make sure to leave a comment, and I hope to see you again soon. Again, if you want to support Story Time with Julian, there are a few ways to do it. There are a couple that I asked specifically. Make sure that you like and share. Like the page. If you're finding us on Facebook, make sure that you like. If you're finding us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube anyway. I promise you it's going to be worth it to you. And share this with your friends. Like, you can actually share the link of this, but what really, really makes it worthwhile is when you tell somebody. Just tell somebody. There's this thing that I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This brother is reading all Black literature by Black folk, for Black folk, written and read by a Black person. He's breaking new artists. Like, let them know about this. If you've been here for a while, don't forget. I know it's old hat to you, but it's brand new to somebody else. So give somebody else the joy that you got when you first found out about Storytime. Let somebody else get that first time feeling. Okay, help me out that way. If you want to help out in other ways, you can always support and tip your griot. You can find us on Cash App at $Storytime Julian. That's $Storytime Julian. No width on that. Find us on the social media places. We're always there. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're even on Twitch. We're on Clubhouse as well. And last Saturday, we didn't get a chance to start with the autopsy of Rare Sean Brown. It is our intention to start this Saturday with live reads starting at 9 o'clock over on Clubhouse. So if you follow us elsewhere and you enjoy it, make sure you follow us on Clubhouse too. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put up our information so that you can find us. This is all the places where we are. Look at that. And if you want to hear what I have to say, you can find me on Twitter too at Magnet for Awesome, though admittedly, my Twitter account is likely to be just about anything. So if you're just here purely for the literary vibes, you want to stick to following Storytime with Julian. But if you want to see the things that I have to say on other parts of the world, go ahead and check me out on Magnet for Awesome. All right. That's who I had seen. K&M, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming out. And thank you, Judy Lee. I appreciate that. Erica Yolita, thank you so much. You are the MVP for tonight, inviting so many people to come through. And I hope that the guests that you invited enjoyed. For those of you who do not yet own but are interested in Tony Cade Bombara's Gorilla My Love, you can find that also at Blackstone Bookstore. They are in place that starts with a Y, Michigan. All right. Gwen is saying that I should definitely, she's saying that y'all should definitely subscribe to Storytime with Julian on YouTube. As a mom with a toddler, it's been super convenient. All right. All right. I'm glad to hear it. I am so glad to hear it. Okay, y'all, this has been Storytime with Julian. Thank you so much for your love and support. Continue to support us. Continue to keep pushing the word out. Let your friends know about it. We will be back on Thursday with another new one. And here come the closing credits. All right. Peace.